All right, so it's time for this look at the Pacific Division as we approach the Christmas break. It's the opportunity every season where teams have 3 full days off. No games, no practices. This is mandated by the league, and it gives everybody the opportunity to look back at the season thus far and where things might be headed towards the playoffs. You may recall back here on the channel in September, I did a Pacific Division preview, and what I did was slot out the teams in pairs of 2. For example, Las Vegas and San Jose, they were at the top of my list for obvious expectations. Right after that, I had the 2 SoCal teams based on experience and potential, Anaheim and Los Angeles in some order. It could be interchangeable there, but after that, it was the 2 Alberta teams, Calgary and Edmonton, with the opportunity to kind of go either way, trend up from there or trend down from there. And then the very last 2 teams I had, 7 and 8, were Vancouver and Arizona, pretty much in that order. Now, as for these 8 teams, as we look at them right now, about 4 of them are out of place. One of them is very much out of place, and I'll get to them a little bit later on. But what I want to try and do here is avoid flat-out reciting stats. I want to try and give you the stories of these teams so far this season so we can kind of figure out and get a better idea of where they all might be headed. Let's begin with the Calgary Flames, who obviously had a back-and-forth start to their season. They did have some early success in the month of November, but it sure does seem like they have been peaking here in the 12th month of the calendar year, at one point winning 12 of 15 games. Now, the cool thing about the Flames is that their top names have been their top performers. Gaudreau, 45 points in his first 35 games, a +12 rating. Hitchcock also has 15 goals and 40 points so far, and Sean Monahan leads the way for this team in goals with 20 in his first 35 games. Let's not forget about Elias Lindholm. He leads the team in plus-minus at 21. All 4 of those guys are 25 years old or younger, which I think is a very important thing for this Flames group as they move forward in seasons to come. But then we get back to the blue line. Marc Giordano, obviously their leader. He's basically been a point-per-game player so far this season. So my prognosis for the team in Southern Alberta, this could be the year that Calgary gets one of the top 3 spots in the Pacific Division. Let's move on to the Sharks, who have hovered around the top couple spots. Right now, they're in 2nd place in the Pacific Division, but I truly feel like they have not even scratched the surface of their potential so far in 2018/19. It sure does seem that implementing Erik Karlsson is a lot harder than everybody drew it out on paper. The Sharks also found a way to lose their defensive identity for portions of this season, including allowing a ton of odd man chances, as well as net front chances, and so many times they had a lead, whether it was a big lead early or a small lead late, that they would not be able to hang on to. There have also been some outstanding positives for this team, including the captain, Joe Pavelski, on a contract season, also having a career season, having surpassed that 20-goal mark and no looking back for him. Also, Timo Meier, at just 22 years of age and just his 2nd full season in the National Hockey League, he has definitely found a way to elevate his game. He had 20-something goals last year. He's already approaching that mark here before Christmas in this season. Also great to see Joe Thornton healthy, a player recovering from 2 separate serious knee injuries and surgeries, and the fact that he has been not only contributing to a 3rd line, but reinvigorating a 3rd line and making those around him even more productive. My prognosis on the San Jose Sharks, you have to feel good about their long game. And I'm talking about all those hopes and expectations from the summer and into training camp. There's no reason those are not still valid here halfway through the season. All right, let's get to the Anaheim Ducks, who were very injury-riddled last season. And in fact, that's probably part of what got them knocked out in the 1st round by the Sharks. Injuries do continue to be a trend for this group, and I think you can really see it in their lack of consistency this season. I mean, for example, they lost 12 of 15 at one point. They also won 11 of 13 at a different point. Kind of makes you wonder, who are these guys? The Ducks obviously relied on goaltending in their first 2 months. John Gibson was exceptional, but he has kind of tailed off a bit in the month of December. As for Anaheim's offense, they only have 1 goal-getter right now in double digits in the goal column. That's kind of amazing, but you do have to look at their scoring and say that it is consistent and diverse across the board. It's not just one or two guys. There's a lot of guys that can score. They just do it a little bit less frequently. My prognosis on the Ducks, as long as they're in the hunt, you cannot take their playoff pedigree lightly. All right, let's move on to the Vegas Golden Knights, a team that everybody, I feel, wanted to maybe have a bad season so that things could even out based on what they did in their inaugural campaign going all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. I mean, this team this time around, they are not bad by any means, but they did start to dig themselves a hole early on, winning just one of their very first 5 games. Now, they have definitely bounced back since then. At the end of November into December, they had 7 wins in 8 games, a nice span there. And an interesting stat here, Jonathan Marchessault leads this team in points at 27. He also leads in shots at 130, which may not mean anything to you, but the next closest leader on the team in shots is sitting around the 85 mark. So Marchessault shoots the puck quite a bit. And how can you forget about Marc-Andre Fleury? Obviously a guy who is very disconnected now from his 3 Stanley Cup rings with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he's getting this new chapter to prove himself all over again. In his 31 starts this season, he has 19 wins and a .258 goals against average, very much a centerpiece of that team in Southern Nevada. So my prognosis for the Golden Knights is this: I'm not convinced they're going to get anywhere near where they did last season, going all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. In fact, I think it's kind of impossible to have to live up to that expectation all over again. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did turn some eyes in the NHL's second season again. All right, let's get to the bottom half of the standings right now. The Edmonton Oilers, they have already gone through a coaching change early in this season, and one that I really don't understand, going to Ken Hitchcock, who had already retired as a head coach in the NHL twice in his career. Now, he's an Edmontonian, and I understand the thinking here that maybe he can be the guy to turn this group around. He does have some experience in that regard, and then maybe his job role is to hand this group over to somebody else in a winning situation. But Ken Hitchcock is 67 years old. He just had his birthday, and maybe there's even some speculation he could be the long-term fit for this Oilers team. I don't know. If you're Connor McDavid, 49 points in 34 games, it is obvious that you're the guy carrying this town, and I wonder what's going through his mind about where his franchise around him is headed. Then you look outside of McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nugent-Hopkins, and you see an Edmonton team that has really struggled to score. And also this, when their goalie, Cam Talbot, has been in nets, they've usually allowed about 3 per game. So you combine the struggling defense, the inability to score as a group outside of maybe those 3, McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nugent-Hopkins, and you're running into an Edmonton team that doesn't have a clear direction right now. I do want to point out one bright spot for the Oilers, and that is their other goalie, Mikko Koskinen, who in his 16 starts this season has posted 11 wins and a .214 goals against average. So my prognosis for the Edmonton Oilers, I mean, there is a long way to go and a lot left to be built for this franchise. If they are in the playoffs, if they can get that far, I really don't see them being terribly dangerous. All right, let's move on to the Vancouver Canucks, and their top 4 point getters are, respectively, 20, 23, 21, and 23 years old. Elias Pettersson leading the way, and this could be a Calder winner of this season. I'm just saying, like last year, Brock Besser was a finalist. How cool is it for Vancouver to have 2 Calder-type guys in back-to-back seasons? This is a team and a group that is trending way up, in my opinion, way ahead of schedule. And especially important because they are coming off a franchise identity change with the 2 Sedin brothers retiring at the end of last season. They're looking for new faces, they're looking for new leadership, and it sure does appear like they have it right now. The story of this Canucks season so far is in wins and losses. They had a good start. They won 10 of their first 17. Then they lost, believe this or not, 12 of 13 games. They lost a dozen of 13 games, and then since then they won 5 of 6. So widespread spans in winning and losing. It has been a roller coaster of epic proportions so far for these guys. They are young, they are talented, they are poised, but the one thing you cannot say to their credit is that they're experienced. My prognosis for the Vancouver Canucks, they're probably not going to crack the playoffs this season. But if they keep this team together and they keep things going in this same direction, I really feel like it's a group that could be chasing Stanley annually. In the Pacific Division's 7-hole right now, it's the Arizona Coyotes, and these guys just don't score goals. As I tape this, nobody on the team even has 9 Genos on the season. And also what's weird about this team's wins is that almost all of them have come in respective streaks. For example, they won 5 straight at the end of October, and then they won 4 straight at the end of November. So that's 9 of their total 14 wins right there, in bunches. Individually, you'd have to look at Clayton Keller. He's only 20 years old, but leading the way for this team in points with 23. He also has that -10 rating, but again, when you're on a team like Arizona and you're struggling, a rating like that is somewhat to be expected. Also this, outside of Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I mean, how many players, when you look top to bottom on this roster, are of the franchise caliber, ones that you want to hang on to for the long term, 5, 6, 7 years? You really can't say that this group has that right now. Antti Raanta and Darcy Kemper have done most of the heavy lifting as it relates to goaltending for the Desert Dogs. But the goaltender that catches my eye the most is Adin Hill. He's got 5 wins, I know, in just 7 starts, but check out the goals against, right now sitting at 1.97. Interesting to see what they have there in Adin Hill. My prognosis for the Coyotes, this is just a team right now that is not built for the short term, or unfortunately the long term either. And last but not least, but yes, also last in the Pacific Division, are the Los Angeles Kings, and this one is just kind of a stumper to me. I mean, how the Kings took such a sharp turn negatively so fast. It almost makes you wonder if they, kind of like the Chicago Blackhawks, right now are paying the price of all the success they had during the past decade, winning multiple Stanley Cups. My biggest takeaways here with the Kings right now, Jonathan Quick, he obviously had the knee surgery at the beginning of November, and he was back with this team playing by the end of that month. The recovery and when he came back didn't do him much better because he kept on struggling, to the point where you're looking at Jonathan Quick and saying he's playing out of character this season. As for their skaters, age has always been a consideration when you consider guys like Anze Kopitar, Dustin Brown, Jeff Carter, and obviously their big summer signing of Ilya Kovalchuk, who is right now 35 years old. He has 14 points in 25 games, but also a -13 rating. Hard to know how he was really going to be this season after spending the last couple in the KHL, and maybe he truly hasn't rounded even back into form yet. My prognosis for the LA Kings and their -28 goal differential as I tape this, I mean, look, they have dug themselves such a huge hole in the standings. I would be both amazed and impressed if they can even put themselves in the playoff picture by the end of this regular season. Hey, that does it for my look at the Pacific Division. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate you stopping by.